federal law passed, I believe, in 1996, signed by President Clinton, that defines marriage as one man and one woman, and it does not recognize any state marriage licenses that have been issued in the years that followed in California, Massachusetts, and whatnot. Those marriages that aren't recognized in that federal law are only recognized at the state level. So, for example, someone could be legally married to their gay partner in Massachusetts or California and apply for citizenship, you know, for an immigration visa, and being denied under this federal law, but still be legally married. And so there's definitely an inconsistency there, because you have legal marriages that aren't legal in certain respects.
I guess my comment there would be, once again, the powers the Congress has are in Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 1 through 18. So I would want, before the federal government became involved, the Congress became involved in spending money or passing a law, I would want to see justification in that part of the Constitution. And if there's not, then the 10th Amendment kicks in, and then that's why my comment simply is that the states then have the responsibility. It's not
I agree with the logic there, that it is something that isn't in the federal Constitution. We haven't delegated it to be a federal issue, but Congress overstepped its authority. Now the issue we have is that President Obama is sworn to uphold the laws of Congress. Is that not correct? So now he is instructed under executive order to the Department of Justice to not enforce this law. So does he have the authority to say, I'm not going to enforce this law?
And it's not, and its root is not a constitutional law in the first place, is what you're saying.
Well, maybe. That might be, that's his argument, and I could see the logic in it, but he's sworn to uphold.
It's still a law.
We're not arguing for a law. We're just saying it's already on the books. We think the president should.
Okay, the president. I'm going to be a politician and give you weasel words and say that the president has responsibility to see that constitutional laws are faithfully executed.
Okay.
That will be my weasel words.
Here's an interesting caveat with his executive order, is that it's only to the Department of Justice. So if a lawsuit proceeds up into federal courts from California or wherever it goes, then basically his executive order, as I understand it, instructs the Department of Justice to not send any attorneys to the courtroom, and not even fight it in court at all. His executive order does not instruct any other agency in the federal government to do anything or not do anything. So even though he said, I'm not going to enforce this law, U.S. Customs and Immigration still is. Which is underneath of him.
Creates a mess, doesn't it? Creates a, yeah, you get into the area of laws being unconstitutional, and then people obeying unconstitutional laws. It becomes a real mess. Mark?
One of the things that, where I didn't pay much attention in politics when I was younger, was seeing Ronald Reagan sign that law into law that banks could hold partners within foreign investments. They could, what's the proper word for it? Or they could own shares in businesses that they funded offshore, but not onshore. I remember it was clear in him signing that day, and I just knew that something awful was happening. But like I say, I wasn't really into politics, but that was an after or gather thing, or in that time frame, but was where banks could own shares in offshore investments. And everything went down.
You know, the only money I think, well, this, no, I'm not right on that, but I know that a substantial amount of the federal national debt is owned by foreigners. I don't know what extent it is right now.
Like, I guess people that wanted to start a small business, they would go to the bank. The bank would say, great, we're happy to have you in there and everything. What country are you going to? And that was the end of the story. That was the end of the beginning plunge of our jobs, too.
Yes, 3 decades ago, yes, during the Reagan years, yeah. You know, we have many, yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Well, you mentioned executive order a few minutes ago. Oh, you did, okay, I knew somebody over there did. I've always had a question about, is the office of the president, and I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican, is the use of the mechanical device of an executive order, is it a way to usurp the authority of the Constitution, which is the law of the land, to evoke a personal interest, agenda, yes.
Yes, yes. You see, executive orders, which came down from President George Washington, were essentially housekeeping orders for the executive branch of government.
Is there a way to derail that doesn't involve a bucket of tar and a...
Yes, and I would go once again, I would go to several parts of the Constitution. I would go to the House funding of things, because something like this, you see, for a law to be enacted and for somebody to put feet on that law, there's got to be federal money behind it. So you can cut off the money, and I would also, pardon me, I would also go to Article 1. Section 8, clauses 1 through 18. You see, and this is something that is not explained hardly at all. I said earlier that, you know, these phrases, general welfare and common defense, okay, those items in Article 1, Section 8, clauses 1 through 18, that is the common defense and general welfare. You got to understand that the Founding Fathers gave future Congresses the ability to tax the American people. But the taxes back then, people will say, you know, as a result of the 1787 Constitution, they'll say the only taxes were tariffs and excise taxes. And that's right. There's only a few taxes, so it kept the size, scope, and cost of the federal government very, very limited. But what we're saying is this. The Constitution gave future Congresses the ability to tax the American people, but the tax money itself can only be spent on the items indicated in Article 1, Section 8, clauses 1 through 18. That's the only way the money can be spent. That is the general welfare. That is the common defense. Now, another little trick that's pulled, that these socialists will pull. Go to Clause 18 in Article 1, Section 8. If you have your Constitution close by. To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper. And they want you to believe that there's a period after that word proper. But the sentence continues, folks. It reads, I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit, but to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. You know, the Founding Fathers didn't set up this form of government with the 3 branches and separation of powers and checks and balances, and then just give the government the loophole like the necessary and proper clause, or the interstate commerce clause, you know, to get around all this stuff, or the general welfare clause, or the ability to make a treaty to circumvent all this stuff. All those things I just mentioned are subservient to the Constitution itself, which is the supreme law of the land. So, but my answer to your question is, you know, the executive orders started with President George Washington for just sort of a house cleaning aspect of things with the executive branch of government, and have been greatly abused. Yes.
It's not mentioned in the Constitution.
No, it's not. So, can the federal government do it? The federal government can't do it. It's that simple. And the 10th Amendment tells us they can't do it, confirms that point. They can't do it. You know,
So we started down the wrong path
oh,
235
yeah,
years
it's
ago.
easy, boy, it's a slippery slope once you begin it, but you know what? There are solutions, and the solution is to cut off the money.